got good news and bad news. It's a nice way to start the episode, right? Welcome to a stupid windy episode. You might can guess what the bad news is. Oh my God, it's like gale force winds. The other bad news is the exposure is horrible because it was supposed to be completely overcast, but it is, in typical New Mexico fashion, completely sunny. We're here to test this guy out, and I've been testing him out for a while, but this is the final day that I have it. This is the RF 1-400. It's on my R5 right now, and even though it is stupid windy, I'm gonna try to get some pictures of some birds today. I was gonna take you guys with me around the lake and vlog in my kind of typical fashion and kind of walk you through what I'm doing and what I think of this, like out in the field, but it's too windy. Right off the bat, I can tell you that this R5 with the 100-400 and the teleconverter feels about the same weight, maybe even lighter than the 500 with the 2X on it, which that's interesting. The 1-400 alone without the teleconverter is by far the lightest telephoto lens that I've ever used. And so far, I'm not going to make like any profound statements or anything, but so far I'm preliminarily feeling like this could become my #1 recommendation for budget friendly intro wildlife lens. All right, it's getting windy again. We'll talk about all this stuff later. I'm gonna try to get some birds. Hopefully you guys have some nice B-roll. I have been filming with this both here and Bosque, and it's cool. It's definitely, I love hand holding this thing and filming with it. So we're gonna try to get some more footage for you guys. I'm looking, there's some ruddy ducks behind me. I just saw 3 bald eagles overhead, so I'm gonna try to get them. I got them with this without the teleconverter. They were too far away. So I'm gonna try, hopefully, I'm gonna wait here for a couple hours and see if they do another lap, maybe go for some second breakfast. And then we'll get back into the studio and see if any of this stuff looks good. And I'll go over my image quality assessment with you guys. Nothing too scientific, of course, nothing too fancy, just my real world use as a wildlife photographer, as a landscape photographer. I'm gonna let you guys know how this is doing. Irish breakfast this morning. So it is the next morning from the last time you guys saw me about 5 seconds ago. It is the last day. Yeah, I have to send the 1-400 and the teleconverters back tomorrow. So on that note, real quick, I forgot to mention, this video isn't sponsored by Lens Rentals or anything because they're certainly not paying me. But I did use Lens Rentals and I did talk to them, and they sent me the 1-400 and the 1.4 teleconverter for free. But I did pay for the 2X teleconverter. So I'm definitely paying out of pocket a little bit for this video. But that being said, I do have a coupon code for you guys for 15% off of any Lens Rentals order anytime, Haul 15. It's down, links down below. I've been using them for probably the better part of a decade now, and I use them professionally for any time I need gear for my actual clients and, you know, real photography work and stuff like that. And then for when I do stuff for the YouTube channel. So that worked out nice, but I do have to send that stuff back today. So huge shout outs to Lens Rentals. Thanks guys for hooking me up this time. I super appreciate it. And definitely thanks for the coupon code for everybody else. So let's get into it and let's see what I got. All right, so here's a bunch of the bald eagles I was telling you about that flew over my head. And right off the bat, I'm going to tell you this lens is pretty great for bird in flight. You know, the 400, 1-400 is focal length is really great for birds in flight. Okay, so here's the raw file, and you can see I didn't do too much to this. Let's just reset that. So this is the raw file straight out of camera. And if we zoom in here, we can see everything is nice and sharp, fairly good detail. I don't particularly like the angle. I wish I would have got the bird looking down at me more, maybe. Sometimes they do that when they fly over because they're curious about what you are. But he didn't do that here. But this is the closest I got to the bird with the 1:400 native without the teleconverter. So this was native, but it was in crop mode already. So that's why we aren't going to be able to crop in too much to this. But you can see even punching into 100%, we're seeing a lot of great detail here. And, you know, most of that is because there's good light. You know, if you have the best light, even if your lenses aren't as good, you're just really, it's going to help with the detail. So like I said, this is the full frame uncropped imaging, just lightly tweaked, a little bit of shadow boosting, a little bit of saturation, just very lightly tweaked. And then here, this is the cropped version. So I only cropped it just a little bit, like 25% or something, just for more composition's sake, just to get him in there a little bit better. And he's looking really good. So I'm pretty happy with that. So we can just scroll through here and just see, I mean, I got so many of him, and the lighting just wasn't great, but he's there and he's sharp in every one of them. And that's more of a testament to the autofocus too. So this is what I was talking about in the beginning when I said this is the first time I got him and they were just way too far away, you know, and it just, at that point, it's not even worth trying. And also this, I mean, look how far away she is. This is with crop mode enabled on the R5. So this is an effective focal length of 640 millimeters. And, you know, we could crop in a little bit and clean it up and edit it, and that's decent, you know, but it's not great. And that just goes to show, I can't say this enough, it's too far away, you know? Like I wouldn't use a shot like that. I would just wait until I could get closer. All right, here's another one. And this, let me reset this to default. So this is raw, straight out of the camera. And this is a great test for, so we can see that I nailed focus. So kudos to the R5 because this image is a nightmare. But you can see on the beak and around these contrasty edges, there's not much chromatic aberration. There is a little bit, and it will get more pronounced if and when you edit it. So if I were to, you know, bring up the vibrance and the saturation, you can really see it there. But that stuff is fairly easy to deal with. We just come up here, boom, one click slider, and it's gone. You know, so if I were to go to my presets and use like my HDR or something, one of these presets, and just clean that up just a little bit. This is going to be a really high contrasty shot anyways, but that detail in this brown creeper and the tree and everything looks fantastic. So that is the full wide shot. And then here is my final edited cropped shot. Cropped in quite a bit, as you can see, 65% crop, and it's looking as good as I could get it. So I wouldn't crop in any more on this, and I wouldn't print it too huge, but I'm certainly happy with that quality. That is totally usable. And the fact that, you know, dealing with these contrast edges, that's what we're looking at here for the chromatic aberration, and this lens does a decent job. I've definitely seen much worse on other lenses, so I'm happy with that. And who doesn't love brown creepers? These heron shots, these great blue heron shots, were just perfect Still just a little bit far away. You can see these are the uncropped, just a little bit too far away for the 400 millimeters in the crop mode, 640 equivalent, but I was really able to clean it up and get this, and the bird is just super nice and sharp. You can see every detail. You can see that it nailed the eye. The wings are a little bit out of focus and maybe just a touch blurry from motion blur. But overall, you know, that is a really great example of the quality of this lens is holding up very well. And again, perfect lighting is really helping this whole situation. So we've got this lady here, this merganser, and she's about to take off. There she goes. I got a couple of okay shots here. I really like this one. I wish she wasn't running away, but I do like the form there and everything, so that's kind of cool. All the detail looks good. Again, still everything I shot today was still too far away for my liking. Like, I knew I was still gonna have to crop, you know, even with using crop mode. So that's where, you know, I mean, this eagle super far away. Look at this. I got this. I didn't even realize that I got it. I didn't realize that it had a fish, but this was just way too far away. Look how pixely and yucky that is when you zoom in 200%. You can see the fish there. If I would have had my 800, I would have got a much better shot of that. But again, in terms of clarity, looks great. Just slightly too far away. Let's take one more look at these eagles. So here's the raw image, and then here is a 70% crop in on that, and that was already in crop mode. So 640 millimeters, and then cropped another 70%. And I think, I mean, just that's 100% from the 70%. So I mean, just look at the detail there. That overall, I like this one a little bit better. It's not quite as detailed as the other one was. I could add some superficial detail in there by sharpening and that kind of stuff. But I just didn't want to because this is more natural. The lighting was fantastic. He's looking down at me a little bit better. And the fact that I could still crop in 70% from crop mode on the R5, like, that's a good testament right there to show that even at 400, where the lens is the softest, it really held up. And that's wide open at f8 too. So there's a lot to be said for the image quality there. All right, let's move on to landscape stuff. So here are some sunrise shots that I got just a couple of hours ago, actually. I went out this morning on my last morning and I grabbed these. So, I mean, this pano here, this is like a 7-shot pano or something at 100 millimeters. So let's look at this mountain here. This is, let's just throw a little preset on here. I like that one. So it holds up nice to a little bit of editing. This is a lot crispier there, so we can see that's nice in focus. This is f7.1, 200, a little over 200 millimeters. I did take some comparison shots. Here's a comparison shot with very similar settings on the 1:500. So it definitely holds up really well, especially considering the price. Here's another giant pano that I did. I think this was an 8-shot pano of just the sky at 100 millimeters, and I think it looks great. f5.6 wide open, 2,000th of a second, ISO 500. I think it looks great. So now we're starting to see the sun coming up, and this is where, I mean, this is a hard shot for anybody when you have images like this. So now you can see, if we zoom in, now you're starting to see that heat haze from the sun, that atmospheric distortion. But overall, you know, a little bit of tweaking and You know, you're starting to see the Zia symbol there on the New Mexico state flag. Pretty cool. So certainly not a bad image, especially considering I didn't do anything to it. Then we've got this guy here. So just a nice little first light on this cool Adobe old Spanish style church in my tiny little town, and the mountains in the background, and beautiful foreground light. You can see the foreground is out of focus because I shot this like wide open, f7.1, 200 millimeters. But you can see that church is nice and sharp. That's what I focused on, was the church. And then you can see even the mountains at 7.1 with that compression, bringing them a little bit closer. So overall, really happy with that image. Again, colors look great. Sharpness is quite surprising. I did not expect this lens to be as sharp as it is for its price again. So you can see here is a single shot, 100 millimeters. I barely got them both in frame. I wanted it a little bit wider, and I shifted my angle a little bit. So here is a 3-shot pano, and I cropped it to a 16:9. And I'm really pleased with this image. Again, the quality looks great, and everything looks nice and sharp. I'm very happy with that. Here is another pano that I did in the mountains near my house, and this is like an 11-shot pano, and I think it came out absolutely beautiful. It's a little soft. Again, both atmospheric distortion. Those mountains are like 60 miles away in the background. That's the Rio Grande. You can see an Elephant Butte. This is looking east northeast, and you know, it's a little bit soft because I shot this wide open. I did not focus stack, so that was kind of my bad. But here's a single shot. If we look at the raw and then punch in a little bit, so we're at 100%. The details aren't amazing. They're not as good as the 1:500. And this is at 100 millimeters. And then because it's f8 and I didn't focus stack, you know, things are going to be a little soft. But even still, you can see the detail back there and all the layers. It's pretty impressive. And there's, you know, obviously haze in the morning light is soft. But overall, I mean, I like it. I'm very happy with that. All right, so there it is. That's a look at all of the best images that I was able to get out of this week, really. I mean, there's a few more. I'll throw them up here towards the end. Overall, I'm going to try to start wrapping this up. The fact that this little, I mean, this, look at this, look, I can't get over this. I mean, look at the size difference. It is insane how heavy and big this is. And this is still, by all accounts, a small lens, comparatively speaking. But this thing, the lens weighs less than the camera body. It weighs less than my R5, less than my R6. I just can't express the amount of amazement that I'm having for what this lens offers in terms of price versus quality and size and weight. You know, you're not going to beat that. You're not going to find it anywhere else in the Canon world. You know, that's, to me, it's absolutely incredible. And the fact that this lens is like literally 4 or 5 times cheaper than the 1:500, just whether you're just starting out or whether you just dropped a bunch of money on a new camera body and you can't afford, you know, something like this, or whether you just can't deal with the weight or you don't want to deal with the weight, you want something light, portable. I mean, all of those options, this lens is going to be absolutely killer for. So a couple of downfalls real quick, or a couple of negatives to think about. The first is this does not have well, it doesn't have weather sealing, which absolutely kills me. I mean, that's the one, for me, it's the one huge downfall, is I'm gonna, even at the expense of weight and effort, physical effort for me, I'm gonna take this more often if I owned this too, which I don't own. But I would still more often probably reach for the 1-500 because of the structural integrity and the weather sealing. For me, living in the desert and dealing with the dust and all of that stuff, like I want something a little more weather sealed. So I don't know how this is going to hold up, you know, with elements in here not being weather sealed and dust getting in and all that kind of stuff over time. Oh, and the other downside is it's I don't know if it's really a downside if you use it that much. But it doesn't have the modes for the stabilization. So it doesn't have the stabilization modes like this does, and like, you know, the 70-200s do. So this has mode 1, 2, and 3, which just activate different modes for stabilization. For this one, it's just all or nothing. So I think with all of that said, I definitely am going to recommend this now as my ultimate budget-friendly, intro-friendly, and just all around best value telephoto lens. I will say that, again, like you saw a lot of my wildlife, I didn't get close enough, and it's easy to think that the lens is the problem and that the lens doesn't look good and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. But I know in my heart of hearts, I know that if I were to have more time with this, and I were to get out there in my blind and my camo and all that stuff and wait and have good conditions and get those birds closer to me, or wait until they get closer to me, I know that this lens will produce amazing wildlife images, and I'm not worried about that at all. You need more time with it, you know, so take that into consideration. Don't judge it so harshly on just the few images that I was able to get today, because while I think those are usable, certainly for my needs and for this video and for social media, I know that this lens can do better. And that just depends on your skills as a wildlife photographer and as your patience, mostly. And for all the other stuff, the landscapes, all that, I think it's beautiful. It is a bit slow, and it is going to require you, you know, for wildlife and sports and that kind of stuff, to have higher ISOs. But since you're on the Canon mirrorless system already, and they're all full frame as of the time of recording this video, they all do a really great job with high ISOs, and the lens, even though it's super cheap, will far outlast any of your camera bodies. Oh, and last thing, I did use it with the teleconverters for just very briefly. I personally am not a super huge fan of teleconverters on zoom lenses, especially on lower end zoom lenses, because you do start to have problems. You do have the potential to lose a little bit of IQ, and especially with the 2x teleconverter, you're losing a little bit of image quality, and you're losing a bit of the consistency in the autofocus. So I was having the biggest trouble with that, is the autofocus consistency was just not where I wanted it to be comfortable using it for any shots that I would actually need, you know? Like, it's not something I would want to rely on. It's something that you could do, and you can get okay results, again, if you understand the limitations and the abilities of a teleconverter. But just do know that you can get teleconverters. They both work for this, for the 1-400. The other thing to consider, though, is those teleconverters, the RF teleconverters, are expensive. You know, you're talking like they're almost the same price as this lens, you know, $400, $500, $600 is what you're looking at. And that's, you know, that's the majority of what this lens costs. So, and for that price, just get this, you know, this is my 800. I've done many, many videos with this and about this. That 800 is much better than this 400 with a 2X teleconverter on it. I can guarantee you that. All right, that's it. I'm gonna wrap it up. I have to get this stuff into boxed up and sent back. And it's 10 o'clock now, so I only have 2 more hours before I've got to get this out before I miss the FedEx cutoff date or cutoff time today. So if you guys have any questions about anything that I went over or didn't go over concerning the RF 100 to 400, leave those in the comments below and I will try to answer them as best I can. If you made it this far, huge thanks to you. I super appreciate it. It's tea time. I will see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.